Hey YouTube, today we're going to be looking at a couple of Smith and Wesson 357 Magnums, and we're going to be comparing some of the differences and some of the similarities in these two. And what we have in front of us here, on the top here, we have a Smith and Wesson model 28-2. This is called the Highway Patrolman. And on the bottom here, we have a Smith and Wesson 586, no dash. It's also chambered in 357 Magnum. And before we go any further, we're going to show you that the Smith & Wesson 357 Magnums have nothing in them, and they are clear, and we are safe to make this video. So we'll start with the top one here. This is a model 28-2, and this is what is commonly referred to as the Highway Patrolman. And this is built on Smith & Wesson's large end frame. And this is the one that is this was the largest frame that Smith & Wesson made up until like the 2000s, when they came out with the X frame that chambers a lot of the big bore Smith & Wesson 500 and the 460 and stuff like that. And what this thing was, this frame came out in 1935. They came out with what they called the registered Magnum. That was when the 357 Magnum was invented by Smith & Wesson, and the registered Magnum was a very customized gun that you could order. It was built to order, and you could get it at any size barrels you wanted, and whatever kind of sights and grips and stuff like that. It's very customized, very well made, highly finished off, and everything like that. And it's built on this large end frame, and that eventually became the Model 28. And the Model 28 was built equally as well. It had a real high luster finish on them and all that. And then in 1954, the law enforcement decided they wanted to switch over to the 357 Magnum from what they had been carrying 38 Specials up till then. And they wanted a little bit more affordable gun. So Smith & Wesson made this Model 28, and they made it more of a matte, not as polished off finish. And on top, they did not put any serrations on it. It's just bead blasted for glare. It made it a little bit more affordable. You know, there wasn't quite as much finish work went into them, but still a very nice finish on this one. If you can see right here, the real close-ups, it says Highway Patrolman on them and 357 Magnum, but it is not a high gloss blue finish on it. So a lot of the law enforcement carried these. A lot of them got beat up a whole lot, and it's really, you don't see a lot of them in like excellent, perfect shape like this one here. It's a very large gun though. It's the same frame that they have the 44 Magnum in. In 1955, they came out with the Model 29 that was made famous by Dirty Harry. In 44 Magnum, this is the same frame. This is the end frame on it. So 357 Magnum, Model 28-2, 357 Magnum, Smith & Wesson. Now this one here, this is what they call a Smith & Wesson Model 586. These came out in 1980, and they are highly polished. If you notice the bluing on this thing, it's very shiny and everything like that. And this is a little bit smaller frame. This is what they call the L frame. This is the medium size frame, and it's also chambered in 357 Magnum, and this one features a full underlug underneath it, and it has a target grips on it also. And this was Smith & Wesson's answer to the famous Colt Python that came out in the 50s. They wanted to make a gun that competed with it, so they put this full underlug on it. And this L frame here is very, very similar in size to the Colt Python. But let me show you some of the roll marks on this thing. It just says 357 Magnum, and it has, you know, the made in the USA stuff. But this thing is extremely shiny and very well finished off. This was one of the original ones. It was made around 1980 because it does not have a dash in the model number. This is one of the first ones here. So if you look at these side by side, you can see the finish difference on them. So if this 28 model 28-2 here, I mean, where it's finished pretty well, but it's more of a matte finish here if you look at it up close and everything. And that's what they wanted to do, was make a less expensive gun for law enforcement, whereas this 586 is fully polished out and everything, and it actually looks like it's wet and everything. But if you look at the frames side by side, obviously the big gap in between the cylinder of this one and the frame is because of the large frame, and it's only chambered in 357 Magnum. This one here has got a much smaller frame in it, so that 357 Magnum cylinder actually fills up the entire frame. Medium frame, large frame. But there's a difference I wanted to show side by side. I mean, there's an obvious difference in frame size. If you look at these side by side, I don't know how well it shows up on camera, but this one, this medium frame, is a lot smaller than this large frame one. So this one's gonna absolutely be a heavier duty made gun. This will handle a steady diet of 357 Magnum all day, every day, and it will never have to worry about wearing this one out. Now, I'm not saying you're going to have to worry about anything with this one either, because this is a pretty stout built pistol as well, but it's just not quite as heavy made as the L frame or the N frame here on top. This is the L frame, this is the N frame. Now, they had a little bit smaller one. I don't have one here in front of us that was called a K frame. That was the Model 19 in blued, or the Model 66 in stainless. It was actually smaller than this one. And they're pretty strong built too, but they don't, I mean, they're not made to shoot 357 Magnums out of them every single day. You want to move up to like an L frame if you're going to do that. They're a lot heavier duty, a little heavier made, and these things are just ridiculous. I mean, this was just pretty much overbuilt for the 357 Magnum. It's just a very large gun for a 357 Magnum. I think it's more suited towards the 44 Magnum. I have shown a video here before comparing this one next to a Model 629 because they're the same size frames. This one just happens to be in blue, and the 629 was in stainless and chambered in 44 Magnum. But main reason for making this video, I wanted to show the frame size differences, and I wanted to show how the highway patrolmen, they didn't do quite as glossy of a blue finish when they did these, because they wanted to make a little bit more affordable gun for the law enforcement. And things like this finish that they put on this thing was more made for, you know, the general public and people. It's more like a premium revolver than that. So you have a workhorse one here, and you have more like a showpiece / shooter right here. I mean, I shoot everything I have, folks, and I've preached this from day one of making these videos. You have to use your stuff, but just take care of it. And both of these guns get used, and as you can see, they still both look brand new. They're both in pristine condition, and if you just clean them up, oil them, and store them properly, you don't ever have to worry about them. But if you look at these side by side, obviously one of them is going to be a lot more glossy than the other one. See, I'm trying to make the light go over them, and there's a big difference in finish in the 586 here and the Model 28-2. So little takeaways from this video is big size difference and big finish difference. That's what I wanted to do, is compare a 586 to a Model 28-2. I wanted to compare an N frame to an L frame. So if you have any questions on either one of these two guns, I have extensive videos, each one of these guns, where I show them, talk about the history of them, and go into how they came about. But not an expert on them, but I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have for me. And thank you very much for watching my video today, and you folks have a great day.